It's 8 o'clock. And here we are at the intersection. It's really great to see all of you today. Was like yesterday, kind of wonderful, crazy, or crazy, wonderful. I'm not sure which it is, but man, at least where I was driving, I went through a lot of rain and it was pretty intense. I thought we would still be getting some rain today, but we may still be. It's not raining where I am, though. It's pretty quiet on this front. Um, so I know our guest is around. He might not be on the screen right now. He told me earlier he had to take his kids to school. And that the benefit of today's world and going virtual like this. There, he's back. Simon's back. But Simon, we won't be starting with the briefing until about 5 after the hour. I always take some announcements at the beginning to give as many people opportunity to get into the Zoom as possible. I have one announcement, um, and I'm really hoping that all of you, many of you, can make this. I'm very excited about what's happening on April 6th. April 5th happens to be the International Golden Rule Day, but we're recognizing it on April 6th, which is a week from this Sunday. Um, we've done this before, kind of as a celebration and remembering that great moral ethic of treating all others the way we wish to be treated, and equally to not treat others in ways we do not wish to be treated. But given the context of our times, the mayor is calling a convening of compassion on April the 6th. I know it's a Sunday and I know it's high noon, but the time and even the location, if you've not been to Confluence Park, it's gorgeous. Confluence is where two streams flow together. So that coming together and flowing together with compassion, community, and with actions from the heart, with courage. Um, there's a request for media, so I'm fairly certain, since that will be coming from the mayor, that the media will be showing up. We're going to be hearing from about a dozen San Antonio Peace Laureates, as well as a very serious keynote from the mayor, but some wisdom from our laureates, as well as some prophetic praying. Open to the public. We really encourage young people to come. You might even consider staying because it's such a beautiful park to spend time in. So I will be sending out this information, already have, but again, free and open to the public. You'll need to bring a chair if you want to sit and your own water. So that is April the 6th, a week from this Sunday. Are there any other announcements in the next couple minutes among us?
And this is Virginia with the Archdiocese.
Hey, Virginia.
Just want to announce that, of course, many of y'all probably already heard, but Advocacy Day is on Tuesday. There's still time to register, and we still have some seats available in our buses that are located throughout 4 different parishes in San Antonio. We'll be leaving at 7 a.m. and returning by 5. We'll be at the Capitol with a whole bunch of other Catholics throughout the state, including all the Texas bishops. And so, if anyone wants to register, you can register. You can go through go to the Archdiocese website and register through there through the Life and Justice Peace Ministry.
In Virginia, if we're not a Catholic, could we still go with you?
You can still join us in the bus. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So feel free. We're just traveling to show our solidarity, and so there'll be some of us that will a few delegates that will be going into the Capitol and advocating for the bishop's legislative priorities. And some of those priorities, I mean, I think a lot of people sometimes get confused, but we are advocating also for like public education, including teacher pay raises and a small increase for student race. And in the past, I mean, there's been a lot of years where there's been absolutely no raise in per student. And so this year, I think there's a bill, and I forgot the number of it, but it's an increase of, I believe, 220 per student. And like I said, in the past, it's been usually under 200 or most of the time zero, with the exception of 2019, where there was a big increase of, well, what's considered a big increase compared to what it's been in the past. It was a little bit over $1,000. So we're advocating for the legislative, but the bishop's legislative agenda, and it includes other things too.
Thanks for making that announcement, and thanks for taking the trek on behalf of all of us. So
You're welcome.
I'm so glad you're around in the Archdiocesan office these days. It's good news. So Simon has returned. So where you see in your screen, Muhammad Ali Index, that is Simon. And I want to welcome you with us today, Simon. Bless his heart, we had a meeting yesterday, and I said, what are you doing tomorrow morning? So you all kind of got the insight of how far ahead I planned some of these. But so Simon, if you want to go ahead and open up your sound. Simon is the lead on the compassion report, which is often referred to as the Ali Index. So Simon, the share screen is open. And I know there's a lot to tell about the compassion report. So to help kind of guide our briefing time, because I know you have to leave at 1:30. One, why Muhammad Ali? I think people here might want to get, just a few lines. Why him? And then I know that how this all came together is new and unique, but I think what people here will be most interested in is what does it mean to us? What does this report tell us? And then people, of course, can dive in on their own later because it's online and anybody can look at it. So thank you for doing this with such short notice, Simon.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Anne, and thank you for your support and enthusiasm throughout this process. It's lovely to be with everyone. If you don't mind, and I'm sure Mohammed wouldn't mind if I go to me first, just by way of personal introduction, so you know who you're speaking to. As you can tell from my very strange accent, I'm not from your shores. I'm on the other side of the pond, and I'm speaking to you from Cornwall in the UK. And my purpose in this life is really to spread messages of hope. I have always been a curious and deep thinker. I studied theology at the University of Nottingham and went on in quite a circuitous route to lead an agency called Global Tolerance, where I represented preeminent religious and spiritual leaders such as His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Gandhi's grandson, uh, archbishops, chief rabbis, all weird and wonderful, the rainbow of humanity, all with this common denominator of global tolerance. Um, I then heard a a story from Indian mythology around Ganesha. And that story, when I heard it, and perhaps if there's time, if not on this call, but another connection, that really transformed things for me. And I decided after 10 years of leading this agency to give away the company that I'd founded through a new exit strategy. And then for the last 10 years, I've been working on incredible projects that have got a really meaningful impact on our world. And for the last 3 years, as Anne mentioned, I've been leading the Muhammad Ali Index. And so to your question, Anne, about why Ali, um, I think he was a little bit like Ganesh, really, is how I'd connect it. In that Ganesha, for me, was a being who just was so tuned in to their core values that they were um, non-negotiable in a way. Though Muhammad's core principles of confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect, and spirituality, all of us can study these different principles for him. I never had the privilege of meeting him, but uh, I've been to the Muhammad Ali Center, and it vibes with his charisma and his legacy. And through Lonnie, his wife, whom he co-founded the Muhammad Ali Center 20 years ago now. It's the 20-year anniversary of the Muhammad Ali Center. So I think why Muhammad Ali is that for him, compassion was second nature to him. He was someone that uh, walked the talk of compassion, and he did so in a way that really reached across generations, across cultural, religious, ethnic, and other divides. Whenever I share with anyone that I'm working on something related to Muhammad Ali, it raises that sparkle in the eye and that slight smile because he just has an effect on people. He means so much to so many people, whether it's through his humanitarian work, his sporting prowess, or his lyricism. He was a great man, and so I think Muhammad Ali is a great symbol for the impact that the Muhammad Ali Index would like to have. And so, just very briefly, what the Muhammad Ali Index is. I mean, again, just by way of professional background, I helped set up the Charter for Compassion, working with Karen Armstrong and the TED Prize, and helping set up the Compassionate Cities Network, and sat on their board for several years, and then also advised the Global Compassion Coalition. And so I've been in this compassion world, if you like, for a couple of decades now. But I've never really seen anything like this. So what is this that you may be asking? And this is ostensibly a research initiative, but with the unapologetically ambitious target of increasing compassion in America, and for America to be a beacon of compassion. And it may be strange or counterintuitive to say that in these times. But as Lonnie says in her open letter to America, in our darkest moments, humanity shines the lightest. So we all know, and religious and spiritual communities, I've always thought have been the specialists in compassion. I've been working on it on a couple of decades. Religious communities have been working on it for millennia. So compassion has been what spiritual communities specialize in. But we know that it's needed. We know we need to be more compassionate, but what is it and how can we measure it? And what if we could not only measure it, but we could predict it? And what if we not only could predict it, but we could see the cultural trends, the long-term cultural trends in these short-term worlds that we live in? What if we could see the long-term cultural trends and levers that are influencing and informing compassion in America today? And that's really what the Muhammad Ali Index serves to do. So to track, predict, and ultimately increase compassion. And we do this through a three-fold path. I should say, by the way, that I'm the proud father of three amazing girls. And as of 2 weeks ago, also a father of a very cute, fluffy white puppy who you may see at any point and who is also a great compassion teacher as well. So we measure compassion. So we go through this process in three different ways. Um, Behavior, cultural research. So we partnered with an incredible research partner called Sparks and Honey to use their proprietary artificial intelligence platform to look at these long-term cultural levers. So they ingest data like deal flow data, mergers and acquisition data, social listening technology to really get under the belly of compassion to see what is really moving the needle on compassion, what is really influencing compassion in America today. That was stage one. Stage two was behavioral research. So we all know that if we just have a survey and we're asked, are we compassionate, for example, many of us be like, yes, we are. But how we then go and act in the real world can be very different. And I'm reminded of Gandhi's wisdom, who said that happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. And that's not always the case. So that's why we look at behavioral research. And so we look at how people are talking about each other, the so-called other, in the real world, and who are the key voices in America leading the conversation around compassion. And then with those first two stages, we use that to inform a comprehensive survey across 12 cities, including, of course, San Antonio. And so there was 5,400 people surveyed across 12 diverse metropolitan cities to really ask them what their perspectives were, what about their communities, but also about America as a whole. And out of that survey, we created a new metric called the Net Compassion Score. So each city and America itself had a Net Compassion Score. And this is a derivative of, for those of you who are aware in the corporate sector, of the Net Promoter Score, to really see who are the promoters of compassion in San Antonio, for example, who are the neutral ones and who are the detractors. And this data is all very interesting, but so what says who cares? So what we did is we brought it all together into something called the Compassion Report, which we launched 2 months ago now in New York. And what this had is it brings together, synthesizes these three stages of the Muhammad Ali Index process, but crucially gives strategic recommendations about how to increase compassion. Um, and we are working with a network of impact partners, including Compassionate USA and San Antonio. We're working hand in hand with them to implement the Muhammad Ali Index in their communities. So, what did we find? What are some of the headlines you may be asking? Well, the good news is that despite the headlines and all of the nasty things that algorithms are feeding us and our children, that America on the whole, is in a pretty good place. Yeah, I think by the way the link by the way is aliindex.org. I think there was a missing N in your link, Anne. So it's aliindex.org is the website. So you can see all of the data on there and read the compassion report. But we found that more people are compassionate than not in America. And in the last 5 years, searches for compassionate related content have risen by over 4,000%. So there is a hunger for compassion in America today. The not so good news is, and we know this already to be true, that polarization is on the rise. And one of the things that the Muhammad Ali Index looks at is the energies of culture, so the energies of the different trends, and the energy of polarization was going up. But of course, if we know what the future is projected to be, then we've got the free will to change things in the present. And as a theologian who I did my dissertation on free will and predestination, I feel very strongly about that. Just because we can see the future trend of polarization going up, we've got the tools and that knowledge now to change that future and reimagine and reframe, reinvent a new future. We also found we defined 5 layers of compassion. We found 5 layers of compassion. Um, of course, definitions of compassion are extremely important, and I know that Karen Armstrong with the Charter for Compassion beautifully defined it as dethroning yourself from your sense of self and placing yourself in the shoes of the so-called other. With the Muhammad Ali Index took a slightly different approach and spoke about 3 stages of an awareness of suffering in the self or other, um, a an emotional response to that suffering, and third and crucially, a commitment to act. So compassion is action. As someone beautifully and pithily shared in our Ali Compassion Forum yesterday. So we found with that definition, 5 layers of compassion. Self-compassion, And we actually found that that is the foundation of all compassion. If I don't get enough sleep, if I don't practice self-compassion, then it directly limits my ability to be compassionate for others. As His Holiness the Karmapa, my teacher, shared with me, you can't teach anyone to dream. Sorry, you can't teach anyone to swim when you can't swim yourself. If so, so we need to be able to stay afloat ourselves to practice self-compassion in order to serve others. And when we don't, what happens? Compassion burnout. And we see that on a rise, particularly with healthcare workers and those in the service sector. So self-compassion, big finding, is absolutely essential, the foundation of all other areas for compassion. Then moving out like concentric circles from the heart to compassion to other individuals, then to different groups, then to the local community, and then to the nation. And of course, for us theologians and others, there's of course a sixth and infinite number of layers going out to the cosmos, to animals, and all sentient and non-sentient beings. So we've we've got these different layers of compassion, and therefore we've got different strategies and recommendations at each of those different layers. Um, so so we found that as well as those five layers of compassion, and I do want to open up for any questions that you may have. We also found something that we call compassion sweet spots. And we use the term sweet spots because, of course, this is something that in boxing and sporting terminology is poignant for Muhammad Ali, but it points to the fact that very specific targets, if we can specifically target certain areas, we will have an exponential impact. And we found six key areas in society where if we can mobilize interventions, new policies, programs, curricula, funding, investment in these six areas, it would have a disproportionate impact on the net compassion scores, on and therefore on our levels of compassion in America and beyond. And they are spirituality, yay, self-care, education, healthcare, sports, and politics. And I say politics because, of course, having a disproportionate effect doesn't necessarily always mean a disproportionately positive effect. And so these are the most influential areas around compassion in society. Before I pause, I do want to just share what our hopes are in terms of San Antonio and moving beyond in terms of what happens next with the Muhammad Ali Index. You'll see, and when you go to aliindex.org, and I should say as well that we've got different ways in which all of you can engage with the Muhammad Ali Index. There's something called the Ali Compassion Pledge, which we invite all of you to sign. We've had Mayor Nierenberg is indeed an advisor of the Muhammad Ali Index. We're very grateful for his counsel throughout this process. But we've got a number of different people, sports stars, athletes, actors, activists, politicians, um, young people who have signed this pledge as a personal commitment to compassion. So please do sign the Ali Compassion Pledge. Also, organizations can join as impact partners. So we are working with impact partners. These are organizations on the ground who can help us take this data and turn it into programs, turn it into impact. And we therefore then wish to share those stories, share that impact with the Muhammad Ali Center's platform. So our work now is to work with San Antonio and the other 12 cities to really turn that data into practical action. We're also looking to turn this 12 city survey into a national survey where we move from a 5,400 sample to a 10,000 sample size to include rural communities as well. And we're also in early conversations with international cities and communities about bringing the Muhammad Ali Index there. So with that, I've taken you to Ganesh, um, Muhammad Ali, and a puppy. So with that eclectic mix, I'm going to pause now and open up if anyone has any questions or reflections, please.
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can, Virginia.
Okay. What do you think of the role of consciousness? Because I feel like to be compassionate, you first have to kind of, or I don't know if it's a first or where it comes, but the role of consciousness and being aware is such a critical role to facilitating compassion.
Yeah, beautiful, Virginia. Well, one of the things that I would say is that uh, we've got a number of different advisors with the Muhammad Ali Index, and within that, hopefully the method behind my response will become clear. We are setting up subcommittees for within the advisory group, including marketing and communications, for example. I think it would be great. I'd of course need to check this with the rest of the team, but I think it would be wonderful to have a a subcommittee or advisors around spirituality and the relationship between spirituality and compassion. It is, after all, a compassion sweet spot. I think there's a number of wonderful existing research projects out there around the relationship between compassion and spirituality. I think that the relationship between compassion and consciousness would be a great one. I'm sure there's someone somewhere writing a paper about that right now. And if there's not, then maybe we could make that happen. So I don't know is the answer to your question, but I'd love those sorts of questions and thinking to inform the Muhammad Ali Index as it evolves moving forwards.
Just one other follow-up. I recently defended my dissertation looking at civic engagement and community organizing, and I was able to identify from my findings five key ingredients that I believe lead to sustained civic engagement through parishes. And so, and they're a little bit similar to what you identified. So the first one was what I call good Samaritans, people that care, people that have stories. And then, of course, the support of the priest or the whoever's in charge, who enables hope through the resources and the followers that they provide and the power source that they provide. And then this was the one that really identifies with you, and that is the sense of that the work that has to provide a sense of spiritual and personal fulfillment. And that's what almost all my participants said, that this work provided a sense of spiritual and personal fulfillment. And then the social networks, which lead to social capital and the ability to take collective action. And so in that, you have, in that model, you have a clear case of compassion, the ability to act and to act for the common good. And so that's something that I myself I am researching right now, but I'm also really deeply involved in thinking about how consciousness, the role of consciousness, and how and through consciousness we can become more communal and more compassionate and really more towards geared towards for the common good.
Mm,
I
lovely.
think we
Thank you,
might have
Virginia.
time for another question before Simon needs to leave. By the way, awareness is the first practice skill set of compassion. So you can develop more consciousness by simply practicing being present. And by practicing that, you can become more aware. So we could have a long conversation about that. Another question for Simon before he leaves. Well, I want to thank you, Simon. I know you need to get on with your day. I've already prompted up on the report San Antonio. So we're going to go there next. We're just going to go into the report so people can see how they can do that. So thank you, Simon, for your leadership. Um, you're changing the world. We're doing the same thing here, one step at a time, but we've been meeting like this since the pandemic began in 2020. We do this weekly, but leaders coming together to get smarter together, to work together, and it's all based on that ethic of reciprocity. So thank you for doing that work because it'll only further our work.
Thank you
So
so much. And yeah, thank you, Anne. And it's been really lovely. Thank you for having me, everyone. And I put my email in the chat. Please do stay connected. And I wish you well. Have a lovely day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
by the way, folks, I noticed that Ann Horst put into chat about the coursework that you can take at Oblate School of Theology on spirituality. So you might look at that. I am going to share a screen. Maybe some of you have already gone to the report online. So any of us, of course, can do this. But what you can do is you can see the 12 cities. Can you see the screen with the map on it?
Yes.
Right. But you can see the 12 cities that were initially researched and click on those. I think it takes you there. Yes. Uh, okay, view the city report. I recognize that photo. Do you all see the photo? Are you traveling with me, I hope? So I was even thinking while listening to Simon, our net compassion score is 9. And I'm trying to figure out, it's been a bit since I looked at this, on a scale of 1 to 10. But we're rated a 9. But I was thinking while he was talking, what if we seriously here sat down with this report, a group of us, and see what it could tell us and how it might move our actions forward. Now you can see on a scale of 1 to 10, residents are to others, what we think the city is, and then about the US, our basis is on those who promote compassion, those who take away from that, and those who are neutral. And you can see above here, of those surveyed here, our promoters are 39%. I hope you're just all reading. That's why it's so quiet. I don't need to read to you. I know that. Mm. And then, of course, it yeah, connects you with these other things. You can see the 12 cities there to the left. If somebody's really interested, that you're a metrics person or how this actually worked, I'm not the person to ask, but I know that Simon left his email address in there and he can explain that to you. It's been explained to me and I sort of get it. But there is use of AI in it. But there are other algorithms that are used Here's the full report. So you can also go into the overall report. These are the things that he reported on in terms of those 6 things that are here. You'll find these wonderful like charts within it as well.
Well, I did a quick scan through the compassion stores for all the cities, and
Uh-huh.
Seattle was up there like 16, and uh, Louisville, Kentucky was at 13, but Las Vegas was at minus 13, and the rest of them were less than 9. So I think we're near the top on it, at least as they're measuring it.
It is interesting to read, what those things are. I have a good friend who leads Compassionate Las Vegas, and he was, helped with this study, and he works so hard. But we all know it's, one day at a time. And I know when he read the report, he was like, oh, but we can't, especially now, we can't be dismayed, right? For such a time as this, we need this work now more than ever. And the amazing thing about now is that we have things like the compassion report. We have things like the human flourishing. I mean, just amazing research that's out there. The research on how we are social beings, and that's what has brought us to still survive because we are social and we do work together. It's just so hard. I think it's hard in today's world when we get so many messages. And I appreciate the fact that Simon talked about polarization and those things that pull at kind of the basics of who we are as humans, that we're social and that compassion is built in our DNA, but yet, right, it's pulled out. So I appreciate that. There are 4 messages. Let me look at chat. Yes, Randy, it is interesting, and it does give me hope to read things like this. It helps me clear my head a bit, and then maybe I learned even one little tidbit can make a difference, right? One little thing is like, oh yeah. Um, I think what all of this too tells me is the importance of, the support and that we give each other, and to continue to work together. We also know in research that as humans, as we hurt, right, we can isolate ourselves, right? And I think what all of this research tells us is if we are, and thanks to Virginia, more conscious, more aware, especially when we're hurting, and what helps us heal is other people. I know it can be tough when you pull back, you know, but, and then maybe even that's our role when we see somebody hurting, to invite them back in to human with us. So we all know too from research all these things, these chemicals that go off in our heads, especially when we're in trauma and we're hurting. Um, I know chances are really high. All of us on the screen have experienced death, and when that has happened, people talk about how their brains go foggy. They'll even say things like, I hardly remember those days. Well, those are those chemicals, right, that are going off in our brains. Um, and I think, wow, we're beautifully created, because death and loss is hard to take. And so those chemicals help us kind of make our way through. But we can also recognize that in others, right? When that's happening. And to be courageous enough to act from our heart and reach out to people when we can see that happening. and to even just sit with someone to remember we're not alone. This whole, journey on the planet is not a solo operation, right? We all know that. Uh, it's also, I noticed Anne has been putting in from overwhelm to action event. I didn't know that was happening on the 18th, but that's kind of the message of April 6th and the Golden Rule Day is from
And
being action.
this
Yes.
is Virginia.
Uh-huh.
I love what you said that we all think that this is like a solo thing, but it's not. It's not a solo journey that we take. Um, and that really speaks to our our way of the way that we've been taught to think is that we evolve on our own, but true evolution doesn't happen alone, or at least not at its primal level. It happens together. When you have evolved and walked that journey, others, that's when you're evolving to much greater, to your full potential. But we are trained to believe that evolution happens just when we've already like stand upright and can think for ourselves and decide for ourselves and support ourselves. But true, in my view, true evolution doesn't really come to fruition until you reach love and you have those encounters of love with others.
Hmm. Thank you. Randy has his hand up.
Uh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Um, this idea of the self care involved in it, I just wanted to observe about the hopefulness of this message and this information. If you're a person that people come to with their distress and their despair, it can wear you out, and and it. I have to find ways to pull back a little bit from it myself and to get a centeredness in myself in order to respond in a compassionate way and have the energy to be able to uh, help people and not be, oh God, I hate to say dismissive, but because if you have conversations now with five different people, you get versions of the same thing over and over again because we are aware of the news and we're aware of the stuff that's going on. And it is just friggin' exhausting. So, uh,
Here's something that might help,
anyway,
Randy.
I really appreciate.
Yep. So one of the misnomers, and I didn't want to interject with Simon, but one of the misnomers with that fatigue element is that it's compassion fatigue. The neuroscience informs us that it's not the compassion. In fact, compassion creates energy. It's empathy. Empathy is that movement of, so like when you listen to five different people
Mm-hmm,
and it drains,
mm-hmm,
you are connecting with them, putting yourself in their shoes because you're living in the same shoes, right?
mm-hmm,
That's empathy. And the neuroscience shows that when we empathize, it literally takes energy, moves out of us, right? It moves out of us. So it's the empathy that drains us. So if you think of somebody, for example, who works at Haven for Hope, right?
mm-hmm,
And listens to stories all day long, right? Because
mm-hmm,
that's how it works, right?
uh-huh,
So you can see we're listening to five people, listen, it's exhausting, friggin' exhausting, you said.
uh-huh,
But what the science shows that if you're in that situation and suddenly one of you, and you're listening, one of you gets like a light bulb of an idea, right? And says, well, what if instead of lamenting where we're at, what if we all gathered together at Confluence Park on a Sunday, someplace beautiful with other people, because that's how humans heal.
Mm-hmm.
And we heard words of wisdom from some of our longest running leaders here and prayers. What then might happen?
Mm-hmm.
And even in the idea, I kind of hope you're feeling it, but energy is created in our bodies when we come into a thought of action. And that's what's the difference between empathy and compassion is a movement of action. Even having an idea is a compassionate move. Taking the next step in doing it
Uh-huh.
is a compassionate move. Your body, you can feel it literally in your body.
Uh-huh.
That
Uh-huh.
energy, like, oh, and we call that sometimes hope, right? But it's also that energy building. Well, I would love to see you there, Randy. It would
Uh-huh.
mean the world to me, Randy, to see you
Uh-huh.
face to face. Do you see
Uh-huh.
what's happening?
Yes.
Adiba, is that?
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Uh, Well, even before Andy started talking, it was the same thought that was coming to mind because Simon mentioned about burnout, and then you touched on that also. With compassion, what I have found through my own personal journey of recovery and therapy, and then also coaching and holding workshops, is that, like you were saying, and that it's not the compassion that gets us, it is the empathy. We get drained. And one thing that I'm so aware of now, and I'm still learning, it's a process, is that I am attracted to that type of atmosphere or community because of the experiences and the trauma that is within my nervous system. So one of the things to be aware of is that we are attracted to something that we can relate to. So it's empathy because I can understand what you're going through. And what's so true is, like what Simon was also saying, is that self-compassion comes first, because then I am able to take that step back and notice the difference between empathy and feeling what others are going through because I've experienced something similar. And then having the capacity and the ability to um, recover or protect or have those boundaries for myself. Otherwise, it's very draining because, I mean, way back when I was a family counselor, I was like, I can't do this. Like, it's that constant feel of being drained after seeing, one family, one person after the other. But through the process of understanding and then truly having self-compassion, and of course, like we've talked before, and it's like it's a process, we're always learning, is when we have that self-compassion, we're still able to have empathy without draining our own energy. And I've seen it. I did a workshop with caregivers for veterans that are disabled, and the caregivers were kind of not sure about coming to a small workshop like that. But then once they connected, and like you were saying, and what if we do this and what if we do that and we do it together, then this energy shifted and there was like, oh, I can do something about it, and other people can connect with me and I connect with others. But I have to really honestly work on my self-compassion first and how to heal the whole nervous system and the chemicals in our brains and all that. But the shift is happening, and we can all do, even if a small part like that, it makes a difference.
Kind of the ripple. And I also raised the question of if everybody could, maybe think back to, I don't know, some kind of effort that you did. I mean, I think to like Pathways to Hope that happens, it's the 10th year. our local mental wellness conference that happens in August. Uh, we work all year long on that, planning it, right? And it's hard work. And especially with like a large event with all that kind of planning behind it, you're going to be tired at the end of that day. I mean, your feet will hurt. I'm telling you, your feet will hurt. You're going to be so happy when you sit down at home and close your eyes for a minute because you're tired, right? But there's also but there's also this other part of you that's going, oh my gosh, that was the best one ever. I am so glad we did that. So you can be tired, right? When you will be tired. You will work hard when you're about compassion. It takes effort. It's not a head game. Yeah, but you got to get the head in the game, right? But at the same time, it creates this wholeness, this energy, the healing. That's compassion, taking action in your own body. Um, it's 8:50, and I put into the side that I'm willing to stay till 9 because this is my favorite conversation. But this, in the last couple weeks, I have become convinced of something that I've not heard in compassion conversations, in compassion curriculum. I've not heard it. It doesn't mean that it's unique, but I've become pretty convinced of it. So when I first took my first round of compassion education like 7 years ago, I mean, like a real, like roll up your sleeves, take the training. It was in 3 sections: self, Simon had 5 layers, but self, others, and in systems. And what intrigued me the most when I went through that was the systems component. I had not like wrapped my head around that, right? But self-care, self-compassion, compassion with others. There was, something at least, intuitive knowing and experience about self and others, but the systems things really intrigued me, right? And I don't know, about a year after I took that, and I took that same course 9 times over, 5 years, because that's the course we utilize for the Compassion Institute here in San Antonio. But one day I like woke up and I went, I'm a system. I, I, I'm a system. I am not even a lone entity, right? And boy, talk about the real work beginning. Like I'm a system. I mean, we talk that way, but do I recognize it? Am I conscious of my own system? Am I aware of my own system? Of course, it includes my family, a family system, but it also includes this entire body. We've got respiratory systems. I have doctors that are in my system. You're all in my system, right? This is a part of me. How do I look at it systemically? Like I might try to look at teamwork at the office, right? How do I look at my family as a system? But how do I look at myself as a system? I'm starting to think, because what I've also watched happen is people can also get frozen and think linear. And there's truth to it that we have to be compassionate with ourselves before we can with others. Yes. But I'm going to keep learning how to do that self-compassion for the rest of my life. I am not perfect at it. So I'm not going to wait to be compassionate with others until I get my compassion together, right? My holy together. And the same thing is true with the system, my family system. I got to keep doing this, but I got this larger system. And I did an action yesterday, an act of self-respect and compassion at, interestingly enough, my cardiologist office. And So I'm going to share this story because once I started to really become aware, conscious of myself as a system, all those other parts of it started to make a lot more sense. We're not like cans on a shelf in a grocery store, right? We're not that individual, right? We are like the supermarket and how everybody works together. That's how we operate here and with others, you know. But I had some difficulty about a year ago with stress in my life and my heart, right? And you know exactly everything that I've had to do, right? I find a doctor, I go to the doctor, he's a great man. And I, had to change some lifestyle stuff. I have to remind myself every day, my blood pressure, all these things, right? And I'm not on any meds yet. I'm not anti-med, but I'm aware. So I can, and I've changed my system. So I went in for my 6-month checkup yesterday. And I had a meeting downtown that was on the hour later from my appointment. So, being respectful of myself and the doctor, I showed up 15 minutes early. I signed in. I did my part by showing up to that system, right? And 45 minutes later, and 30 minutes before my downtown meeting, and I was at the med center, right? I started to feel here in my chest. Our bodies know long before our heads do, by the way. What's going on, our bodies know long before this part of this creature knows, right? But I feel this thing right here, and I'm like, I'm getting anxious, right? So the system in me is like, so what are you going to do here? And I've been there before when this thing triggers, and I'm in a similar situation. And I have done many different things. I have stewed about it, detrimental to myself, right? I have, there's these things: fight, flight. I've got new ones to add to this: fight, flight, frozen, as I can't even move. I've experienced all these things. I've also added to that forgiveness and a faithful move to myself and to the other system, right? So I took a deep breath, which is a compassion practice. Breathe. Now, if you have no other first thought, and these chemicals are happening, if you can remember to breathe, that can help pull oxygen into your brain, right? So I breathed for a moment. I went up to the counter and I said, I'm wondering if it might be possible for me to reschedule my appointment. So I led with a question, right? And they kind of looked at me and they're like, well, of course, but you're up next, right? And I've been there before, right? And I'm like, yeah, um, I get that. I said, but I have a meeting downtown at the hour. And I had told myself that I need to leave no later than a quarter till, and I'll still be a little late, but I was willing, quarter till. And I said, and it's now 25 till, and I'm next. Will I be out in 10 minutes? Because I, like a doctor, have appointments all the time, and my time is valuable to me. And I prefer just to reschedule other than, and I'm thinking in my head, fighting or fleeing or, these other things, right? I'm thinking that, and I felt really good about it, right? And then I even offered, here's said, in fact, I had blood work done last week. So basically, we're meeting for him just to tell me what that says. Could somebody maybe just call me or send me the information and we'll be cool? Every step and every question I asked, I felt better. I got to tell you, my energy, I was hearing my own voice. This thing here didn't hurt. There was a shift that was happening. And not only that, the PA who was, she was looking straight at me in my eyes and I into hers. There was this other element that happened, mutual respect. I'm going to call it that, because she didn't get defensive. We all know this dynamic. This isn't, she was just like, well, that's a good idea. And I'll have the doctor. She said, no, I'll call you. I'll take on that commitment and I'll call you with that information. I said, great, perfect. You know, um, I didn't mean to share that today, but there is something about recognizing that we're all a system and we're all connected to every system. I'm sitting in, my home office and I'm surrounded by my system, by electrical bills. And I mean, just it goes on. I we're not in a vacuum, not even remotely. Try not to get overwhelmed by it. But I love you all. It's 9:01. Enough. Adiba, did you want to say something else? You still had your hand up.
No, I'll lower it. But you know what? And many of us, I know myself, we are taught to sit down, be quiet, and do as you're told, and you don't cause any kind of friction, right? You have an appointment, you sit there until you get it done. And it's a hard program to rewire.
Well, in some place in there, I did mention, and because I mean it, how much I value the doctor. He's a great guy. I value his time and his expertise. Should I not expect that for myself?
Yeah.
And then there's another decision. I can make those other decisions, right? But I also find that questions are a great tool when it comes to compassion. To go up and just simply ask, would it be possible for me to just reschedule? And I did it that way. It was not,
Yeah.
I've done it the other way before. I confess, I have. Um, but and it's practice. And we can
Yeah.
go right to the neuroscience. The way we operate simply happens by doing things over and over and over again. We can change our neural pathways
Yeah.
and how we act. How I did that yesterday didn't just come to me yesterday. It's been by practicing that I want to do it differently, because I don't want somebody coming and screaming at me because I know how that feels. So it comes back to that ethic of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Do unto others as you would wish them to do to you, right? So I've found questions to be very helpful. I think they invite curiosity, and curiosity is also a compassion skill, to be curious of the other. That's how we turn enemies into friends, to be curious. Okay, really enough. I love this. I love Thursday mornings.
I do too. Thank
I
you.
don't always think that when I wake up. I'm like, oh, it's Thursday. I confess, another confession, it's Thursday. And then I don't know, somewhere along the way, I'm like, it's Thursday, And I meet Simon. That's the other thing. All these people doing work that we get to meet. I don't know for you, but all these sessions as of late have given me so much hope, because we are not alone globally. There are 11 other cities at least from the Compassion Report that are working. And there are almost 650 cities globally that are officially compassionate cities. they're working every day. We are not alone. I'm going to say it again. I love you all. That's the next research I'm going into, though. There's all this research on love. I cannot wait. I'm diving in head first. Thanks all. Have great days.
Thank
Um,
you.
stay out of the weather if it gets wild. There's no reason, right?
Thank
Thanks.
you, Anne.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.